DIY. And what is my legal pitfalls that I need to be aware of? And that big word of capital gains tax.
Make sure you do comply with all the legal obligations, and as well as the bylaws of the City Council with regards to building plans and approval thereof. There's also additional things that you need to take into consideration.
When you do home improvements, you can reduce your tax payable to SARS, but keep record of it, keep your slips and keep your invoices. That's vital.
Welcome everyone. This is Amore from Margie Pienaar Estates, and today we are talking about DIY and what is my legal pitfalls that I need to be aware of, and that big word of capital gains tax. Werner van Rensburg Incorporated, welcome back again today.
Thank you, Amore. Thank you for the opportunity to join you again. We are looking forward to a very informative discussion, and thank you for inviting us again.
Great. And today, Ignus from Kempen Group is also joining us straight out of the Western Cape. Hi, Ignus.
Hi, Amore. Hi, Werner. Nice to see you again. Thank you for inviting me from Kempen Group all the way from the Western Cape. So hopefully we can enjoy a good discussion. We're basically based in Western Cape, and we focus on tax and accounting, and we'd like to assist property developers, homeowners in their tax structures, and hopefully we can be of value today.
Yes, great, thank you. And Werner, just quickly tell us a little bit about your company as well.
Amore, as I've mentioned in our previous interview, we've been around for a long time, established in 1993. We focus on conveyancing, but we've got a big litigation and deceased estate department as well. And during this time, we've seen a lot of pitfalls for the legal pitfalls for DIY. So I would like to comment on that as soon as possible.
Great. Guys, today, everyone on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you guys are joining us from, I think one of the pressing questions that you might have is, you've been in your house for quite some time, and you might think, I've seen some potential that I haven't seen before. What should I do now, and how should I go about maybe doing something different in terms of building on? Maybe I felt the need for an outside entertainment area, or maybe I want to open up my kitchen. And sometimes you have these questions of, what should I consider? And I think I'll answer the first question is it a good idea? It's always a good idea. What you just need to remember from an estate agency perspective is beware of overcapitalizing. So a good idea is maybe to get your local estate agent out to your property that knows quite a lot about the area, and ask them, am I going to overcapitalize if I do whatever you want to do? So Werner, maybe you can just answer from your side. What will be my legal pitfalls that I need to be wary of if I'm going to build on my property or DIY something?
Amore, what we quite often see is that people do improve their homes, they improve their sectional title units, and then at a later stage they will decide to sell their property. And that is where the legal pitfalls come in. Often these alterations are done whenever they feel the need for that, but the legal and the paperwork is not done properly. Yes. So what happens is the building plans are not drawn up, the consents are not obtained from the different municipalities and from the co-owners in the sectional title complex, and that complicates things. So when we want to do the transfer in the deeds office, the bank or the city council might come back and say, listen, there are not approved building plans for these alterations. We are not an occupation certificate for this, and these things need to be done prior to doing the transfer. Often things like that can delay a transfer by up to 6 months. Sure. For example, as I've mentioned with the sectional title complex, the building plan is just one of the documents that needs to be drawn up by a professional architect or a plan drawer. And then after that, those plans needs to be submitted to a land surveyor, and he will do a proper land surveying of your unit And there will be additions to the sectional title complex. You need the consent of all the co-owners. You need the consent of all the bondholders in that sectional title complex. And then it needs to be sent to the Surveyor General to register the new sectional title plans and your participation quota in the scheme. So very important, you know, when you do these alterations or additions to your property, not only with sectional titles, I'm just referring to sectional titles now, but in all instances, even with the full title property, to make sure you do comply with all the legal obligations, and as well as the bylaws of the City Council with regards to building plans and approval thereof. There's also additional things that you need to take into consideration. For example, consents from your homeowners association. If you're in a full title security complex, you might be encroaching on some servitudes or building lines, so you need approval for that. And as I've mentioned just now, very important, once you've finished with everything, it needs to be inspected by the City Council, and they will issue a new occupation certificate to make sure that your building additions comply with all the formal regulations.
Yes, and I think sometimes, especially in our profession, what we see quite a lot, Werner, is the fact that you might at that stage think it's a great idea, or the area that you might live in might not be so strict in terms of the rules you think. And then when you end up selling, like you mentioned, we now sit with an issue that a transaction that you foreseen of registering within 3 months is now delayed with a hopefully 6 months delayed. And it's something that you could have looked at before time. And if you dealt with that, then this would have all never have happened.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Werner. And Ignus, maybe you can answer something for us as well. And I think this is a question that I get a lot when selling properties is, okay, so I'm selling my property. If it's my primary residence, or even if it's my secondary residence, a property that I might have bought for an investment. If I sell this property, what happens with my capital gains tax? What threshold am I liable at? And am I liable for my capital gains tax if it's my primary residence or my secondary residence? There's sometimes a lot of confusion that I think you can clarify quite easily for us.
Yes, thank you, Amore. As they say, there are only 2 things in the world that are certain. It's death and taxes. So if you ask about capital gains tax and you sold something for a profit, well done. You sold it for a profit, but there is always capital gains tax to consider, unfortunately. Yeah. There are certain exclusions which you have to, which will benefit you. If it's, for instance, a primary residence in your own name, you will get a benefit of your first 2 million rands a profit that you won't have to incur tax liability or capital gains tax on. 2 million might seem a lot to a lot of people, and I think that's why there's a misconception in the market and say, well, there's no capital gains tax on your primary residence, but that's not the case. As I've told you just now, if you bought your house in good times, maybe paid a bit less for it, or you've had your house now for 20 years. Eventually, 2 million rand is not a lot over that period, and you might end up with a big tax liability going forward. So, yeah, people need to be aware of that. If it's your primary residence, you'll pay a bit less, but you still have capital gains tax that you need to consider. When we do talk about home improvements, for instance, which is a topic now on DIY, if you have those expenses, you can reduce your tax liability. You can add it to your cost price of the home, and you can reduce your tax liability going forward. But what we do see is you might have done those renovations 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and now you want to claim those expenses and show to SARS that you've actually done those expenses, but you haven't kept the record, you haven't kept the spreadsheet, you haven't kept your invoices, you haven't kept your proof of payments. And we do see it a lot from SARS is, once they do ask you for that information, they don't always ask you for it, but when they do, the taxpayers that are able to respond quickly and effectively, they get their results and from SARS quite easily, and it gets resolved painlessly. But it's when you start to go and look for it, and it takes weeks and weeks before to reply to SARS. That's when they think there's something to go into, and they ask for more questions. So it's vitally important when you do home improvements. you can reduce your tax payable to SARS, but keep record of it, keep your slips and keep your invoices. That's vital.
Yes, and I think that's, again, when we sell property, we see that quite a lot, is people don't keep record of it, but they want then, and then your time pressing, and then you have to give this info to SARS, and then you're unable. So I think it's a good idea is to keep record of it.
Exactly.
Guys, thank you for your time today, Werner and Ignus. And if you've got more questions for us, guys, please put it in the comments and we'll try to answer it. Have a great day. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Amore.
Bye, Werner. Bye, Amore.